to those folks who want to be your mayor. And we are going to do a bit more of that today with a guy who's affectionately known downtown as the Challenger. You might ask who that might be. I would like to introduce you then to D. Michael Collins, who about a month ago made his announcement that he was interested in that seat for mayor. And you're still here, huh?
Good morning.
Yeah,
I'm still vertical.
You're so, so this is not your first rodeo in this regard. You ran in 2009.
I did. I ran in 2009, and the thing that I left with in 2009, losing an election is probably a far more greater experience in terms of the learning factor than winning.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And so we did not intend on running this time, but we were recruited to running by a very competent and qualified group of people who felt that this candidacy and this election is extremely important, and I would be the proper person to move the city forward.
When you say we're not intending on running, who's the we?
My wife and I.
Okay.
My wife and I had discussed it, and and the family and the children, and we discussed it, and frankly, we weren't going to do this, and we were going to stay on city council. However, the compelling arguments that were presented were of such nature, and it boiled right down to the bottom line. And we were sitting having our dinner one evening, and my wife looked across the table to me and she said, 12 months from now, will we have a discussion as to why you didn't run? Because that's the critical component. And I said, that's an interesting question. And so the next morning we got up and I said, you know, are you in it? Because if you're in it, then I think we need to go for it.
And she said yes.
And she said absolutely. She said,
so talk to me then about the compelling arguments that people made to you that would cause you to run, because there is a major leap from my point of view from being on city council and then running the city under a strong mayor's system of government, which we have. So
I haven't, the compelling issues are the lack of transparency that has existed with the current administration, the idea that when the mayor entered into this, that it was going to be a relationship consistent with the CEO and the board of directors. Well, it's been anything but that. It's been dictate upon dictate, and it's my way, and this is the way it's going to be. Frankly, I think that
it's interesting that you say that, because he says that about you too. But just hold that thought for just a second, okay? Because what we haven't done is given folks any background about who you are and what your qualifications are, and we do have some information on you that I'd like to talk to folks about. You were a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, but once a Marine, always a Marine. That's right. You were a graduate of the University of Toledo with a Bachelor's of Science and an MBA in Business Administration, and you were proudly a police officer for 27 years, 10 years as the president of that union, and that is one of the experiences that you cite as the foundation for your strength and your commitment to this community and this government.
And that's absolutely correct. And you know, the reason for one of the reasons is this is my way of paying forward to Toledo, because frankly the city of Toledo, although I was born and raised here, provided me with the opportunity of an education, the ability to be employed in an education for all of our children, and Toledo's a great community.
Yeah. So let's talk about your platform issues for a second. I'd like to identify the ones I know and certainly toss in any that I miss. Safety is a big one for you.
Safety is the most important one is jobs. We have to have an adequate supply of good jobs, or this city will not move forward in any direction.
Well, what would you do that's different than what's been done? There have been mammoth efforts made to save Jeep for as far back as Mayor Finkbeiner. There have been the current mayor, Mayor Bell, has made many trips abroad that he says have been productive in terms of getting foreign interests involved in our local development. So what would you do that would be different?
Well, I think the major issue that I have is our economic development engines. Dr. Johnson, the president emeritus from the University of Toledo, came forward in 2007, actually, and carried into 2008 with what was called the Meta Plan. And that was put on the table, and it was really, when I looked at it, I thought, this makes perfect sense. Bringing all of the silos down and having one concentrated development effort. And an example would be when they did the groundbreaking over at the old Jeep plant. Who was present at that groundbreaking? Chamber of Commerce people were present, but it's their project. Politicians were present because they were looking for the spin out of it. I was present too, so I guess I'm falling into that same realm. And the media. But where were the rest of them?
Who would be the rest of
The
them?
rest of them would be, where was RGP? Where was the Chamber of Commerce? Where was LCIC? Where were the rest of these economic TMACOG? They weren't there.
So your premise is that the failure of these folks to attend speaks to their lack of connection to the economic development process?
I think that the connectivity is missing. And I believe that with the Meta Plan, that connectivity will be re-engaged because everybody will be working at the same levels.
But that doesn't, or do you assume that getting those folks engaged fixes things any better than, or causes us to make any more progress than we've made under the current mayor?
Absolutely, and I think it's extremely important that we look at our universe in a universe of reality.
Okay.
There is no excuse that I can come up with why we are in the circumstances that we are in today.
How would you define
short
them?
of
Go ahead,
we
I'm
have
sorry.
had no political leadership in this community.
And
to
how are you
speak of.
defining those circumstances?
Well, we sit there at the corridors of the United States with our turnpike. We have both north and south and 75.
Fabulous
We
assets.
have the asset of Lake Erie, which is 20% of the freshwater supply in this entire planet. We're within 600 miles of the majority of the population in the United States. Had it not been for the efforts within this 60-mile radius, we would today be looking at swastikas at our government buildings, because this is the area which actually produced the industry to capture our abilities to be successful in World War II. And so when you look at it from a historical point of view, there's no reason why we are not the epicenter of industry in the United States. We have just had too small of a vision, and it's not going to happen overnight.
And that is true. No one's mentioned that before you, and I'm glad that you do mention that. I think people forget the marvelous situation that the city is in terms of access, highway, railway, waterway.
Affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
A workforce that is second to none when
Right.
it comes to commitment and when it comes to ingenuity. I mean, when the entrepreneurs came here and developed the glass industry, was that by design or was that by accident? It was totally by design, because they knew what they were getting in when they came in, when the Owenses and the Libbies came in from the East Coast. They knew what they were buying into when they came in, and they ventured themselves to us.
That's true. That is true. The problem still remains, though, and I don't want to veer off into this topic too much because we just don't have enough time on the show. But the problem remains that we don't have a lot of available, developable land in Lucas County, and in the city of Toledo particularly, and that causes a great problem when it comes to economic development. So with those things in front of you, and the fact that the mayor has, according to he was here last week,
Right.
and according to his visit with me, said that he's managed to, despite the economy, despite the disenfranchisement or the disengagement of those folks that you mentioned, he's managed to move economic development forward quite a bit.
I would challenge that, and I disagree with this attitude that there is nobody in Northwest Ohio, there is nobody in the United States that is capable and qualified to develop these areas. I totally disagree with that statement, and this is not something against the Chinese, but I totally disagree. And frankly, the problem we have in Toledo, for an example, the Southwick area, we have bad ownership of property here. We have owners that don't get along. And as a municipality, you can't go in and say, look guys, start acting mature about these projects. And until we start getting a mature attitude about some of the properties, and Mayor Bell or Mayor Collins cannot basically change that.
You know,
we have areas here that are critical to development.
Well, and despite my earlier statement, the two most prominent areas that are available for development in town are Southwick and then Northtown.
Well, we also have Capitol Commons off of Angola Road. And that is pristine property over there.
That is right. I'd forgotten about that. See, your brain is younger than mine. So what are we doing at Southwick?
Well, Southwick's
starting to remind me of the Marina District, actually.
Well, there's a big difference in Southwick. Some things I can't at this moment divulge because I'm under a confidentiality understanding with it.
I won't tell anybody. You can tell
Well, I know you won't. But between you and I, I'm not going to be able to tell you either.
All right, okay.
I would say if we can get key components to come together within probably a year out. Now, is it going to happen overnight? No. Is it going to happen in a year where all of a sudden the Phoenix bird arrives and it's all going? No. It will be a very disciplined, step-by-step situation.
And wait, can you tell me what the vision is for Southwick?
What my vision is for Southwick?
Yeah, you can't tell me where you are in the process of developing, but can you tell me what it would look like when it's done?
I think it will. One of the major things that we have going in that area, and it's one of the greatest secrets that is only shared to a few, is Maumee Valley Country Day. An absolutely top-rate school that brings in foreign students into their program, and their success rate, and look at their graduates, and look at the number of people that are across the world that have graduated from there. That is, in my opinion, the ability and the catalyst that'll redevelop that whole area. They just made a huge investment.
So the redevelopment of Southwick is actually not something that you guys are going to manage downtown, but are hoping that that Maumee Valley Country Day.
I'm only using that for an example. Okay. I haven't had discussions with them, but I see that that's a critical relationship that could build upon that whole area.
So is there a plan to develop Southwick at this point? So yes or no?
No, there's not a plan at this moment in time because there hasn't been identified a developer, or now that there's a for sale sign there, that changes the landscape.
Okay, hold that thought. We got to go away for just a second, but we will be right back. Please don't go anywhere.